Hello and welcome to Sarah's Stampin' Retreat. Today we're going to be creating some acetate cards in a few different ways, and to do that we're going to be using some of this month's Spellbinders club kits. So I'll show you those as we go through, but the first one we're going to use is this gorgeous stitching die. So you get this frame, the flower and the circle, and for today's video I've cut them out exactly as I've got them laid out here. But you could create this in so many different ways. So for example, you could have this and you could cut this and this into it to have a one layer card. You could even just put your sentiment in the middle here without layering those on. You can have the center of this popped up, and then because you've got the outlines of these, you can use those in different ways as well. For example, you could just cut the center out of that and have it as a little aperture, or put your sentiment into a circle and cut it out and have that as the middle. There's loads of different ways to use it, but I'm going to use it as I've cut them out here. So I've got the green layer, then the pink, and then the cream. And for this card I'm going to use some real tone on tone stitching. So I'm going to use these three colours here. You can see they don't match exactly, but they're kind of tones of. And I'm not going to do a lot of stitching on this video. I think if you stitch a lot then you'll do this very easily and probably do kind of a lot more variations on the patterns. And if you don't regularly stitch, then you'll pick it up very quickly, I think, from what we're doing. So I'm going to go in at the bottom of this leaf. I'm going to do one leaf and one of these little kind of circles. I'm kind of calling them berries for this. And between those two, then I think that will show you everything that needs to be done. So I've caught that piece of thread behind, and I'm going to make sure that in my first stitch I'm catching that underneath. So can you see how that's caught underneath that stitch? So I'm going up the first side of this leaf first, and there are embossed lines on here as well to show you where to go. So it's not even like you have to decide where to put your needle, it literally shows you what to do. So that piece of thread is really securely attached behind those stitches now. Then I'm going to go back down the other side of the leaf. So we're not doing anything complicated here, just up and down and up and down. And then I'm also going to just go up and down through the center line. So I'm just literally doing a running stitch, so up and down and up and down on the way up. I'm going to fill that back in on the way down. And of course you could use a back stitch here as well. So where I'm coming up, then I'm going back in here, and then I'm going back down the stem to fill in the gaps that I left on the way up. So there's that leaf completed, and all of the other leaves will be completed in the same way. And then I'm going to use this kind of creamy lemon colour to do these areas around here. I'm calling berries. So don't worry, I'm going to finish that off after, so don't worry that there's thread hanging on behind there. So then I'm going to come up the centre of this berry, and I'm going to go down one of these outside pieces, and then I'm going to go back into the centre, trapping that piece of thread behind, and up the next one. And I'm going to continue like that round the circle. So then we've got those two bits done, and we're going to use the same stitches for the rest of all of this. And then if you look, this is just a big one of these, and the same with this, it just doesn't go into the centre, so you're just going to go up and down and up and down and up and down. So it's the same stitches we're going to use through the whole thing. So I'm going to do that off screen, and I'll come back when it's done. Okay, so now you can see all these pieces are stitched. So I think that looks really pretty with that added detail. And then I've cut an extra one of these, and that is because we're doing an acetate card, and I don't want all of this on the back showing through the front of the card. And then I've also cut two of these, so I've just used the outline piece for this without the stitching bit to cut these, and that's why it's really useful to have these separate outline dies. It makes it much more flexible. So I've cut 2 of those to go inside my card. So one will go here and one will go on the back. So you write your message on the back, and that means that they can sit behind here and you'll still be able to see all the way through the card, which is the whole point of it. Because I think the acetate cards, when you've got this kind of lacy look, just look so beautiful. So what I'm going to do first is just add this to the back of here, and that way this will be what you see through here instead of this. So to do that, I'm going to add some of this double-sided sheet to there, and this is a special type of double-sided sheet, and it's the Sizzix adhesive sheets. But whereas most double-sided adhesive sheets come as kind of a, like you get the 2 pieces and then the bit that's in the middle is like a sheet of its own right, this is just kind of flat sticky glue in the middle. So the advantage of that is that I can add this to here, then I can pop this back over the top and I can burnish that down, and then I can take the back off, and can you see we've then got glue stuck to these bits, but you've not got that sheet of glue over the back which would disrupt the gaps. So then I'm going to pop this over here, and then if you find you've got any glue left in these little bits, you can just grab a glue eraser or your finger really and just kind of rub anywhere where there's a little bit of extra glue. And to be honest, most of it's kind of already gone. Sometimes you get a little bit kind of clinging across one of the gaps, but it's easy enough just to rub away. And then we'll be able to see this through the front of our card rather than all the mess that was on the back of my stitching. So then you could use that same double-sided adhesive again to add this to your card. But I'm going to use these sticky dots, which does a very similar job, but because they're dots, you don't get bits clinging in between the pieces. I didn't want to use that to stick this onto here because you get the little gap between the dots, and I was worried that it might not stick with the sewing, but it will stick this to the card just fine. So I'm going to use the sticky dots for this. So I'm going to just do it in the same way as I did with the Sizzix sheets. I'm just going to smooth that over, and then I'm just going to peel this off. And to be fair, this probably would have worked because there's not as big a gap between the dots as there was in my head, so this probably would have worked for the other step 2. So this is just a comparison. And then I'm just going to add this to the front of my card. The card is just a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card that I made from a heavyweight acetate. And then I'm going to use these glue dots for the flowers as well. So I'm going to add them in here. And then I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to do the one from the back first, because then I can line this up through here so that that's over the right part. And then this one I'm going to put over here, and it's just to hide that glue. So you could also, if you wanted to, add another one of these inside. To be honest, I don't think that looks too messy, so I'm not going to, but you could add another one on the inside of there if you wanted. And you can see that that stands up really nicely. So then I'm going to grab some fine pads and I'm going to add the flower onto the card. So then I've got this sentiment, and I used this BETTERPRESS plate to create it. So that's the You Are Everything sentiments. Obviously you can use whatever sentiment you've got in your stash, but you might have seen me using this sentiment set last month. I did a floral BETTERPRESS video with it in, but I just thought I'd show you because I'm absolutely loving this, because all of the sentiments are on one plate and there's a die to cut them out all at once. And the thing that's really nice with having this in the BETTERPRESS is when I've had this kind of stamp before, it's not necessarily stamped really evenly across everything, whereas this I've had no problems with at all, and I'm just storing kind of all the extra sentiments in here so that then I've got them ready to grab each time. You can see all the green ones that I've got left over from this, and I've kind of used that BETTERPRESS plate just as a stamp for this time. You can't really see that it's pressed because I've just used the normal cardstock. I've not used the special BETTERPRESS cardstock. Well, I didn't need it to be BETTERPRESS for this, so it's quite nice just to have that option of just using normal cardstock. So I'm just going to add some foam pads behind there. And I wanted that sentiment not to kind of stand out too much because I wanted the flower and the see-through aspect of the card to be the main thing. So then I've got that nice subtle sentiment down there that says this card is full of birthday wishes. So that's our first card done. So then for this second card, I'm going to use the Stamp and Die of the Month set. And it's this really gorgeous archway of lilies, and the die cuts it out so that it cuts these pieces free, which is why I thought it'd be really nice for an acetate card. And you've also got all these dies to cut out your sentiments as well. And these stamps are a really nice quality. They're not kind of flimsy, they're really lovely. So I'm going to ink that up with some black ink. And then I'm going to go colour that. So now I've got that coloured, and you'll see I've really roughly gone over the edges in blue because I want the outside to be blue. So now I can die cut that and neaten everything up. So then you can see I've cut these two arches with one of the Essential Arches dies. They come in a set like this. And I've cut the arches that are the most similar size to this. You can see that they just fit within this. So I've cut two of those, and I'm going to ink one of them using the Antique Linen Distress ink. And then I'm going to bring in a box, and I'm used the Mustard Seed Distress Oxide spray to just add a bit of texture to it. That's a bit brighter than I'd intended. I had intended to create a bit of a softer look, but actually I think that's going to work really nicely. So I'm going to make this one into an Easter card, so I'm going to use this Happy Easter sentiment. So I'm just going to stamp that on here, and I'm just going to colour over that in blue just so that it matches back with this here, and then I'll use this die to die cut it. So I've got all the parts. You can see that this is flattened out where it had gone kind of domed when I sprayed the ink on. It started to flatten much more now. So I've got a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card blank made out of acetate, and I'm going to add these two to it, and for that I'm going to use the dots that we've used previously. So I'm going to add that onto there. So then I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to add sticky dots onto these two pieces. And it's always easier to do the back one first because you can see how it lines up with the one that you've already put on the front. And then you can line up the one that goes inside with the one that you've put on the back, and then you know that that one will be perfectly placed. So then we've got that really pretty card, and you wouldn't even know that that area to write was behind there. And also when it kind of is open, you've got that depth between the front and that yellow layer. And so then for my final card, I've got this Glimmer of the Month kit, and it's really gorgeous. Huge big daffodils, and then we've got Sending Easter Blessings and You Brighten My Day. You've got the two dies to cut out the two sentiments, and you also get included this champagne foil. I'm not going to use that champagne today though. I'm going to use black. So I'm going to go ahead and just foil that in the black foil. So I've got some white cardstock. Then I'm going to add on my black foil. And then I'm going to tape that down. And I've got that sending Easter blessings as well. And then I've got my glimmer machine. That's actually not going to fit on at the same time, so I'm going to put it round here instead. So I'm going to pop that on there. Then I'm going to put on my timer. Once that stops flashing, then I'll know it's heated up and I can put it through my die cutting machine. So there's my daffodils, and I've coloured and cut those out, and you can see that shine on that black as well, which is really lovely. So these are quite big. They're actually too big to fit on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card blank, although you could cut them down if you did want to put them on that size. So I've got a 5 by 7 inch card blank. So I've got 6 by 4 inch piece of blue cardstock and a 6 by 4 inch piece of white cardstock, and I'm going to add those on with my glue dots. There's nothing to line them up with on the front this time because I'm just using rectangles, so I'm going to do this bit first. Usually, like on the other ones where I've had something to line it up, then you want to put the front bit on first. I'm getting towards the end of my sheet of glue dots now, so I'm going to move it around the sheet a few times, and then I can pick up all those extra glue dots, the ones that kind of, where we've got something like this, you get extra glue dots where the spaces were. So I'm just going to move it around, and that's a really good way to make the most of the last of a glue dot sheet. So then I'm going to grab a new sheet of glue dots to start. And I've got this 5 by 1/2 inch strip of black cardstock to go along the bottom of my card. So then I'm going to add my flowers on, and then I can add a little foam strip behind the sentiment. And there we are, that's that one finished. This sentiment, by the way, is the sentiment that I hot foiled, but then I just coloured over it with the same blue marker as I went around the outside of this with to tie it back into the card. If I'd have known I was going for this colour scheme, I would probably have hot foiled it onto this colour cardstock, but I think this is a good workaround since it was already foiled. So there are all 3 of today's cards. I really hope you've enjoyed making them with me. Please do let me know in the comments below which is your favourite. I really hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, I'd really appreciate you clicking like below. You can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got a new video available. All of the products that I've used for today's cards are listed in the description below, and there's also a link there to my blog where you can find a picture supply list if that helps you find what you're looking for. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.